what you were doing on the 29th when you guys debuted in St. Louis. Well, the next day you're in Richmond, Virginia, taking on Ron Bass. December 1st, you're in Asheville, North Carolina, in the main event against Dusty Rhodes in a bull rope match. Where does a bull rope match fit into your repertoire? Is that something you enjoyed doing, or do you remember having a favorite bull rope match, or is it one where you're like, I'd rather pass? No bull rope for me, please.
Well, it's Dusty's specialty.
Yep.
I don't like going into matches at a distinct disadvantage. I don't mind overcoming odds and sometimes even overwhelming odds, but you put Dusty, that's like saying, you put the Andersons in a tag match. Well, that's their specialty.
Right.
You put Dusty in a bull rope match, you're going to get clunked in the head with that cowbell, and it is metal, and every edge of it is sharp as it can be. It'll cut you, and that's just the way they're manufactured. That's his specialty. I expected to go in there not knowing how to use that rope and how to use that cowbell. I knew it was going to be a learning situation, and learning on the job with a 10-pound cowbell is not the best position to be in. And I'm sure that night in Asheville, I paid for it. I'm sure he cracked me in the head many times. And basically, it's just one of those situations where you take whatever advantage you have on a given night and you push it, and whatever disadvantage you are, you just try to survive it, because in those days, it was 336 days. You had one every single day.
You're going Spartanburg, South Carolina for a television taping on December 3rd, and you're going to do some promos on there. But the dark match after the taping is done is the Rock and Roll Express against you and Ole Anderson. On the 4th, you find yourself in the main event. This time it's Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors taking on Ric Flair, Ole, and Arn Anderson. And then on the 6th, you're doing another television taping, this time in Hampton, Virginia, the Coliseum. And it's going to have Magnum TA, Billy Jack Haynes, and Sam Houston on one side, Tully Blanchard, Ole, and Arn on the other. On the 7th, you're going to do a TV taping, or not a TV taping, a live event in Cleveland, Ohio. This will be a Texas death match with you and Dusty. If you had to guess, bull rope or Texas death match, which one do you prefer the least?
I got a feeling I died on both of them.
That's probably a fair guess.
Good thing I got 9 lives, myself and Cats. We've got 9 lives, because I'm sure I lost 2 of them there back to back.
Well, and the hits keep on coming. On the 8th, you're in the Omni, and now you're working with Dusty. And man, what a moment this is. A bull rope match, second from the top, with Dusty Rhodes and yourself, one of your boyhood idols in the arena you grew up in. You're walking in with that tag gold around your waist in a quote unquote gimmick match, a bull rope match. What was it like for you? What do you remember about these early matches with you and Dusty and we'll call it December of 85, or as far as the actual match, not what it meant to you as the fan, but how was that match different, or was it different from other matches you were doing? Because Dusty was a superstar, and he did have a different style and a relationship with the audience where there was a little more showmanship and whatnot. Can you talk us through that?
Sure. And here's the deal. Even though we had different opinions on pretty much the business and, the way we carried ourselves, and I'm sure I had a big mouth. I'm sure I was braggadocious. But the fact of the matter is, when you walk down the aisle of the Omni and your opponent is in the back, and you get in the ropes and you look around at that ambiance and you go, this is what it's all about. Even though I've been there by this point several times in the Omni wrestling, now my opponent is coming through that curtain carrying a bull rope with a cowbell on it, and it's Dusty Rhodes. Mark, he could very well have been, if you had an argument, you could have made it the biggest star in the business at that time as a babyface. Some were going to say Hogan, some were going to say Flair, all these other, be a few other names you could throw in there, but Dusty was his biggest star. And it was not lost on me when he came down that aisle, the reaction he got, the expectations the audience had of him. And remember, I'd only had a couple of bull rope matches prior to this. I'm learning on the job, and you got to be able to have a bull rope match. And there's, some things that you do in a bull rope match that let you know real quick it's different from any other one. Say you roll under the bottom rope to catch your breath like you would do in any normal match, and you walk around the post and thinking you're out of harm's way, and the guy in the ring gives that rope a jerk, and boom, right in the post you go. You realize, hey, I'm in something different here. I'm actually tied to this guy and cannot get away from him. And it makes everything different, and it's a different dynamic, and it's something as a top heel that you had to learn to deal with, just like a bunkhouse match. Come as you are, do as you please. You got to follow suit with that, and it has to have a meaning. And cage matches for a heel usually meant you're going to get your ass handed to you. Everything in that business, it was a learning curve for me at that point. I was still pretty young, and man, it was just, hey, I'm like a baby. I'm just trying to soak it in.
Let's mention that you're going to do a TV taping in Greenwood, South Carolina. There'll be a dark match, which is a $20,000 bunkhouse battle royal. Of course, you and Ole are going to take part in that. You're doing a TV taping the next day for Mid-Atlantic Wrestling on December 11th. You'd be in singles action against Gene Ligon. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about him. Any good memories of Gene Ligon?
If you go back and look at Gene, for some reason, he looked like a very young, without quite the arms of a young Bob Armstrong. Just his facial features and just almost his body structure. But Gene was a really a nice man. And, that sounds funny coming from me at that time, but, he was a guy that trained in the Carolinas and, was a television staple. He was always there for TV, and just a really good guy to talk to. I'm sure he didn't feel that way about me on some given tapings, but Gene Ligon was one of those guys that you remember was just a good, honest dude and a credit to the business.
We've spent a lot of time talking, especially on today's episode, about the fan in you, about how tickled you were with your lot in life at this point. I mean, you're getting to live your dream. But I am curious, is there a moment you remember in your career, maybe it happened in 85, maybe it didn't, where you felt like, damn, I've made it. I belong.
I'm not sure that there was a moment, but after some of those bull rope matches with Dusty, some of those matches with Magnum, being in there with the Rock and Roll Express, with Ole, basically just being in the mix. And when that booking sheet would come out, you would look at it and you would see the town and you would see who your opponent was. And as you saw it on paper, that meant in the short time that I'd been there, and I say it's a short time, I hadn't been there that long, my company has developed enough belief and respect in me that they thought I could carry that spot on top in a town with Dusty or whoever it may be. And when your company puts that kind of faith in you, man, it just makes you want to do that much better and get that much over and bust your ass even more. And that's what I was feeling, the confidence that, hey, this is number one company in the world. And that's the way I felt. And they're using me on top in a lot of these towns, not just a random one, and a lot of them. And that's a good feeling if you look at it from a business perspective.